The 2015 running of the J&B Met is synonymous with fast horses, high fashion and the odd helicopter transporting folk to and from the races who are not prepared to brave the traffic on this magnificent day that happens to represent the longest running sports sponsorship in the history of horse racing in South Africa. The outcome of this year's race is entirely dependent to a large extent on the running of the Lormeron's Queen's Plate, which was won by a son of Dynasty this year. Arguably the wrong son of Dynasty, because the odds-on favourite Legislate, the ruling horse of the year, trailed in a dismal last, and of course Team Snaith were up against the clock to try and get him ready for this year's J&B Met after a bout of pharyngitis, an infection very similar to the one that Futura suffered before the running of the Diadem Stakes. So it's been a very, very testing time for Team Snaith, but the one thing is for absolute certain. This year's J&B Met will be the poorer for the non-participation of the Horse of the Year, Legislate. It also leaves us with only 3 Grade 1 winners. The multiple Grade 1 winner, Louis the King, the Sansui Summer Cup winner. Futura, a dual Grade 1 winner, winner of the Lormeron's Queen's Plate. And the 2-year-old Grade 1 winner, Gold Onyx. The rest? Well, there are a couple of horses that have been Grade 1 placed, including Dynamic and Talina. But the rest have some work to do. In fact, come to think of it, last year's 3rd placed horse, Punta Arenas, is also in the race with some sort of a fighting chance. The man that has won the J&B Met 4 times, 3 times with Pocket Power and once with River Jatez, is Marsh Shirtcliffe. And he has Helderberg Blue and Paterfamilias in the race, both trained by Supremo Mike Bass. As we all should know, J&B is one of the most famous brands worldwide and has served the South African horse racing industry like no other brand before it. To boot, we have a star-studded lineup in this year's 2015 renewal of the J&B Met, including the other son of Dynasty called Futura, who was absolutely spectacular when his trainer Brett Crawford thought that he might just need the run, but just absolutely demolished the field in the 2015 renewal of the Lormeron's Queen's Plate. Then of course you've got the Woodruff factor, including the Triple Crown winner Louis the King, himself a son of Black Minnelush, and he'll be ridden by Pierre Stradum, the only man to have won 5,000 races here in South Africa. His stable companions include Kalua Castle, who was second to Louis the King in the fantastic Sansui Summer Cup. And then of course there's Talina, who gets a weight allowance because he hasn't won a Grade 1 race, but he was victorious in the Guineas. He was beaten a short head in the Classic as a 3-year-old, and he's ridden by a top-class rider in Gavin Lorena. Many other horses in the race that would appear to have some kind of chance of running into the money. Sean Tarry's got a horse called Gold Onyx, also a son of Black Minnelush. We've got Arian, who bounced back to top form in his last start. And we've got a whole lot of other horses that might be pretenders but might not have the class. So as far as this product is concerned, thanks for joining us. Cheers and enjoy the gallops. Behind me in the far distance is Millerton Training Facility, where quite a few horses are being prepared for this year's J&B Met. Some will argue that the winner is being prepared at Philippi from the Justin Snaith stable, the Brett Crawford stable, or possibly even the Stan Ellie stable. We think it's probably a 50-50 split. The man who's got his finger on the pulse as far as the analysis of the 2015 renewal of the J&B Met is Mark van Deventer. He's the racing editor of the Natal Witness. He does many podcasts for Interbet. He does a lot of selections for the computer form. We've seen him to good avail in the Lormeron's Queen's Plate and the Aventure Fillies Guineas. Here are his sentiments as far as the 2015 J&B Met is concerned.
It's interesting to note that in the build-up to the Queen's Plate, people ruled out Futura because he suffered from a similar ailment. And of course he came bulleting through from the back of the field and just produced this withering stretch run.
Look towards the inside. The sponsors blew off Legislate. He's still under a tight hold and he's starting to move into contention. King Vault is between runners. Louis the King is still 2 lengths off the leader. Futura's getting going along the inside. Stand side, it's Ashton Park. Legislate has come under a ride. Futura gets driven into the lead with 100 metres left to go. Ashton Park, Louis the King over the top. He's wearing down Futura, drawing to the judge. Futura beats Louis the King. Gold Onyx, Jet Explorer, Talina, Ashton Park, King Vault. Then came Legislate and Paterfamilias.
Yeah, and I think Brett Crawford was quite willing to concede that afterwards. When I chatted to him, he said that it was a blessing in disguise, the interrupted prep, and it perhaps helped them to realize that Futura didn't need as much work as they intended to give him. And Futura came out fresh. That really was an outstanding Queen's Plate run. I timed the sectionals, and the last 1,000 meters he blitzed home in 59 and 6, which is a very rapid closing sectional, even if the early pace was slow. You know, for a middle distance horse to be able to quicken up that way is impressive. And I think many people are expecting him to do something similar in the Met, because there doesn't seem to be that much pace on. There is a real likelihood that it could be steady at best. It might even be slow. And that will favour horses who have the ability to accelerate sharply.
Okay, let's go to Team Woodruff then. First of all, the champion, Louis the King. There's no question that the word champion is apt. He ran a fantastic race in the Lormans Queen's Plate, not dissimilar to that of the Charity Mile.
Yeah, that was a great run. And chatting to Jeff Woodruff afterwards, you know, he said he'll have him primed 3 weeks hence. And the Met has always been the target. Louis the King takes a while to get going. He's going to produce a sustained finish. He doesn't have that turn of foot of Futura, for example, or even for that matter his stable companion Kailua Castle. But I'm sure he'll get a masterful ride from Pierce Stradom, who's arguably riding better than he's ever done at any point in his storied and illustrious career. Louis the King is an athlete. He's got the heart of a champion, totally consistent, so you almost know for sure that he's going to be in the finish without a doubt. So Kailua Castle has got the ability to quicken up. Again, Pierce Stradom was very forthright when I spoke to him recently. It was fascinating as he discussed the different propensities of the horses, and whereas Louis the King takes a while to get going, Kailua Castle has got that instant acceleration. So depending again on how the race shapes up, Kailua Castle could be dangerous if he skips and gets clear. Louis the King will be trying to run him down late. And Talina is a very interesting runner. You know, on the surface, only I think 4 wins thus far. So you wouldn't really expect a horse like that from a total of 20 starts to be a menace in a Grade 1 race. But he's got close before, and he may well be improving after gelding. So I think he's a big place chance, is Talina.
That's the key, the gelding. He was bought as an entire to go and stand next to his great father, Silvano. That didn't work out, so sanity prevailed, and Dr. Andreas Jacobs, being the very pragmatic man that he is, decided to go for the knife.
Horses' careers have been transformed that way, and Kailua Castle is sparingly raced, and I'm sure he's also going to deliver a career peak on Saturday.
All right, the horse that really made that quartet pay in the Lormans Queen's Plate, because at the end of the day you were only missing one real horse, and that was Legislate. All the other horses were expected to be there. Jet Explorer, who ran 3rd the year before, was 4th. But I thought a fantastic run from the first son of Black Miniloosh ever to come to South Africa, and he hails from the Sean Tarry stable, who has been victorious in this race with a big outsider in Alistair.
That's right, he dropped the bomb with Alistair and Garth Puller way back. Yeah, Sean Tarry is a consummate horseman, super professional. You know, he doesn't put horses in spots where they don't belong. I do believe that Gold Onyx will really battle to win. I think a couple of lengths shy of what it takes, but again has the ability to finish with verve and may well be able to run on into the money. I spoke with Felix Coetzee after the gallops, and he confirmed that Gold Onyx is doing really well. He was also happy that Grant Burr has now developed some sort of affinity, having ridden him on 2 previous occasions. So he will know the right time to produce Gold Onyx for that finishing surge, which may well get him into the money, but I'd be startled if he won.
Power King is the son of Silvano from the Dean Canamay stable, and he almost pulled off the Triple Crown here, the Winter Triple Crown, that only Pocket Power has managed to do. But he seems to be a completely different horse since he's been gelded.
That's the talk from the stable, and I think also in his favour is he can quicken up. In the past he battled apparently with his knees and his feet, but he
showed it on the way to the start.
Oh yeah, there were some times when he used to totter down to the gate. You weren't even certain he'd make it there, never mind actually complete the race. But he's really been revived by the gelding. His physique has lightened up, so he's much more comfortable. He's striding out properly. And if you look back to his Guineas run, where he finished right on top of an outstanding crop, and not forgetting that he very nearly pulled off the Winter Series. He was just denied in the final leg in soft ground behind Dynastic Power. And I think that Power King is a real live place contender. And Carl Nisius will be able to work out a perfect trip, I think, settle him midfield. And again, there's no question, if they go fast, he'll be staying on fine. If they go slow, he's able to run, 34 and change the last 600. So I think he's a big runner. When I chatted to Carl, he said, marginal place chance, which is a very realistic appraisal, sensible. Yeah, Andrew, look, Helderberg Blue might surprise. He was a very volatile and temperamental sort, but he's calmed down. He's settled into a routine with the master trainer in Mike Bass. Speaking to Grant van Niekerk, he says he feels more comfortable aboard him now. And we haven't seen the best of Helderberg Blue yet. In his last start, he moved up menacingly and then petered out. He may well have needed that ever so slightly, and I think he'll run a great race in the mid, assuming he copes with the preliminaries, because obviously there'll be a lot more of a buzz beforehand. So hopefully that doesn't destabilize him. I think he's a live place contender, because on collateral form there's not really much to choose between him and Power King. Apparently Paterfamilias was off with a slight tendon problem, and he's come along well since then. And yeah, Mike also mentioned to me that he may well surprise. He's obviously a horse with ability, and previously he ran up close to some decent sorts. The prep hasn't really been ideal. Obviously he would have preferred a stronger pace in the Queen's Plate. Didn't really feature there, and also reported as not striding out, so he would be
hopeful more than anything else.
One of the least likely contenders in my book, yeah. But one that I'd just like to dwell on a tiny bit, if I may, is Jet Explorer, because I think that he's as well as he's ever been. And when you're looking at horses with a turn of foot, that Jet Explorer has got. Awesome run in last year's Queen's Plate, when he just came zooming through from the rear. And it may well be that an easy 2000 could suit him perfectly.
Well, he won the Grable 1900 with consummate ease.
Yeah. And Greg Sheen could well be able to settle him from an ideal alley, just stalk them midfield. Whether he's good enough to match strides with those top three obviously is a moot point. But as far as a live outside is concerned, that people may want to lob into trifectas and quartets, or maybe take a venturesome each way bet, they could do a lot worse than go for Jet Explorer.
Dynamic, also from the Justin Snaith stable, has had a long break, but he's bounced back really well after an injury. And remember, he did run second to Power King in the Grade 1 Investec Derby of his year.
Yeah, he's done great, since his layoff. And of course he ran Cape Town Noir to a neck in the Derby over the course and distance.
The Investec Derby, you should say.
Indeed. And he's come well since the layoff. He's reeled off 3 on the bounce. And I did an interview with Sean Cormack, and he was very impressed with the Met Gala. He said the horse towed him around, was really loving it. But he spoke about the versatility of Dynamic and his ability to either race handy or come from off them. And that tractable nature is often a very important quality in the racehorse. And Sean is an outstanding professional. He judges pace very well. He's not afraid to go and assume a forward position. He may well be able to get the run of the race on dynamic, and he may be able to outrun his odds.
One of the funny things about the J&B Met is it tends to throw out consistent results from year to year. And a horse that ran a gallant third in last year's J&B Met was the Stan Ellie trained Punta Arenas.
Look, I think the most realistic appraisal came from Stan Ellie. He said that they would be delighted to earn some money, and they are hopeful, but obviously Punta Arenas is not a main contender by any means.
Is he the same horse that he was last year?
His prep, I believe, has gone fine. Perhaps didn't get the best of rides last time, and at the weight turnaround with Orion, he must have a chance of finishing ahead of that one. So if you give Orion any chance of burgling a place, then on that same basis maybe Punta Arenas might totter into the money.
And so at the end of the day, it brings us to the most important question about the race, and that's not who's going to win it. Yes, of course, we'd all like to know that. But what about the pace of the race?
To me, it looks like a race that will be run steady, but I don't think there are going to be any tearaways. And what that suggests is that it could be much closer than people anticipate. Because most of these horses, Andrew, can run the closing 600 in under 35 seconds. So it's all going to depend on positioning around the bend and when jockeys decide to make their move and if the gaps open up. But very often when it's slow early and fast late, as a race profile, it's a clustered finish.